Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Public Hearing Committee meeting for October the 7th. I would like to remind everyone that our meetings are web streamed and televised, and for those in attendance, if you could please turn your phones on silent mode. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none, if I could have a motion to approve the agenda, perhaps? Okay. A motion to approve the agenda, Councillor Rabbits, and seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. So now that we're moving, I guess 3 o'clock start, I now officially open the public meetings held under the Municipal Act, Planning Act, and Drainage Act for the purpose of hearing applications and proposals and affording any persons in attendance the opportunity to make representation to the Public Hearing Committee. A reminder to those coming forward to the podium to please state your full name and address. Those speaking on planning matters, please be advised that to preserve your right to appeal to the local planning appeals tribunal, you are required to make comments or provide written submissions prior to the passage of a bylaw. A reminder that we have new rules in place around public hearings, so we will be limiting speakers to 5 minutes unless they are the applicant or planner, in which case we will provide some leeway to present their application. Speakers, please also be reminded that information presented cannot be repetitive in nature. The first report that we have is staff report DCS 19-101. That's in regards to an application that has been received to rezone parts of the subject land from agricultural to hamlet residential and to prohibit the construction of a single detached dwelling on the lands designated agricultural. Darren and Carolyn, Velgesgraf have put forth the application affecting the lands described as 3246 Swimming Pool Road. And I guess, Alicia, is that yourself? Can I be present? Thanks.
The subject lands are 1.41 hectares in size and are a vacant former rail line, and the lands front onto Wyndham Road 19. They're designated agricultural and hamlet in the official plan and zoned agricultural, and no public input was received for this application. This application facilitates a severance which allows part of a former rail line to be merged with the adjacent residential parcel. The special provision will prohibit a single detached dwelling in keeping with the agricultural policies, and the hamlet residential zone will match the hamlet designation on the remaining lands. Staff support this application and recommend that it be approved.
Councillor Columbus.
Madam Mayor, do you wish us to stand or remain?
Oh, you're fine sitting.
Okay. Yeah, to the planners. It talks about Swimming Pool Road, but nowhere does any of the maps show Swimming Pool Road. So I'm curious why we're talking about an address on Swimming Pool Road when it's not depicted in a picture or diagram.
Through the mayor, the owners live their lands front onto Swimming Pool Road, so sometimes the owner doesn't live on the lands that we're referring to, so that's why Swimming Pool Road came up in this case. It is the other end of the rail line.
Oh, I see. Okay,
Yeah.
Thanks. I thought they were joined. I didn't realize that it was separated.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have a question for staff, and it's not particular to this one application, but all of them and every one I've seen ever since we got here. Like page 2 of 10 of the report, so page 4 of our agenda, we have all our different departments, and I keep seeing this, no comment at this time, no comment at this time, no comment at this time. But does that mean that they are allowed to add comments after the fact and change the rules of the game? Because if they don't have a comment, then they shouldn't be allowed a month or two down the road to add something new, because then the applicant doesn't know what they're dealing with. This council doesn't know what we're dealing with. We need to have all the facts. So how does that work?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Van Passen. In terms of the circulation, when we're putting in there, those agencies and departments would have been circulated as part of our circulation process. They have a deadline as part of that to provide comments back for the preparation of the report. If they fail to do so, or if they have reviewed and have no concerns with the application, that is the commentary that's included. Once council renders the decision on it, the application is considered final and binding once the 20-day appeal period closes. So there wouldn't be an opportunity for them to come back and comment based on the application in the future with respect to what the amendment and what the application is containing. Through you, Madam Mayor. No. Once the report is drafted and council renders the decision on the application, the file is then closed and that issue is considered completed, so that there wouldn't be the opportunity for those departments and agencies to come back and make further suggestions or comments or requirements on the application because it's closed at that point.
Continue a bit, like, the reason I bring this up, we recently had a deputation at our podium complaining about, a severance application, and they are just about at the end of their 1 year to get it done, and the building department shows up and wants them to do something new that they were not aware of a year ago. Seems to me that's like they're changing the rules of the game. And I want to make sure that that doesn't happen, that you have to, if you make your comments here, you got to stick by that, and that's the end of the story, and you can't just add things later.
Through you, Madam Mayor. With respect to the deputation and that issue that was raised, there are slightly different processes when you're dealing with a zoning amendment or application that we're hearing today that is brought before council versus a land division application, consent application, severance applications, which are heard by the Committee of Adjustment. When the Committee of Adjustment hears a consent application, they're given conditional approval. So they have 1 year to satisfy all the conditions that have been attached to the approval. So those conditions would have been outlined when the report is prepared and given to the applicants and presented towards the Committee of Adjustment. So they'll have 1 to 10 or 12 is kind of the typical conditions, and they vary based on the applicant that is and the application that is at hand. So when the report is heard by the Committee of Adjustment and as part of the public record at that point, the conditions are attached. So the applicant would know what conditions they have to clear before that year comes up. They cannot add, a building department or planning or engineering cannot add conditions through the process. The conditions are approved by the Committee of Adjustment on the date of the approval, and they have that year to finalize them.
I think that's a good idea. Councilor Rabbits?
Thank you. And through you to our planning staff, I'm looking at page 4, it's 2 of 10 of the report. In planning considerations, a consent application was conditionally approved by the Committee of Adjustment July 17th of 2017, involved severing a part of that former rail line and merging it with the vacant lots. I was hoping you might have an opportunity to maybe elaborate on that decision. When I'm looking at the map, it looks like you're able still to access the rail line through Council Street and Windham Road 19. And I was just wondering how the Committee of Adjustment and their deliberations come to allowing a section of rail line to become part of a parcel, because I don't know if that's a walking trail. We haven't had any comments back from residents in that area, so obviously they're still able to access the trail, and it was conveyed to them in a way that they'd still have access to this thoroughfare. I don't know if it's being used, if there's any vehicles or equipment there for those adjoining farms. Likely they're not using that to get through, but that's a walking track. Likely people are walking their dogs through that area, and I just was wondering, what decision was made in 2017, and if that's part of the decision-making process, because it's a thorough line. It goes all the way through the community, right? And now we're saying that we're going to sever that rail line or that walking trail, and you'll only be able to basically go back to the road, walk around, and get back on either side. So I'm hoping that what I'm looking at makes that a trail accessible. I was wondering what that decision was in 2017. Obviously, I wasn't a member of council at that point in time. I was wondering if you had any further information in that regard.
Through the mayor, I apologize, that's a typo. It should be 2019. But this is not a walking trail. This former rail line is just, it's a regular private lot like any other lot. It just happens to be a former rail line, but there's no walking trail or any public access to it.
Further to that, so we're not maintaining that trail in any way, shape, or form?
Through the mayor, no, the county is not responsible for this property.
Thank you.
Anything further? Okay, would somebody like to move the staff recommendation or propose an alternative? Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. It's just, I don't know what I'm doing. It's, my brain's in another spot right now. My apologies. Is the applicant or agent in attendance? Okay, is there anyone that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone that wishes to speak in general or against the application? With that, if I could have a motion to close the public meeting. Moved by Councillor Michelli, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favor? And that's carried. And now would somebody, any further questions from
I was
council?
just prepared to move the recommendation as
Okay,
printed.
and a seconder? Councillor Taylor, Councillor Columbus. So staff recommendation is that the application of Jeff Dishmeister, 351 Cortlandt Street, Delhi, affecting the lands described as part lots 23 and 24, Plan 52B, part lot 2, Block C, Concession 7 in the geographic township of Windham, Norfolk County, to amend the Norfolk County zoning bylaw 1Z 2014, file number ZNPL 2019259, be approved for the reasons set out in report number DCS 19-101, and that no public input has been received for this application and therefore will not be considered as part of this decision. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, next is staff report DCS 19-104. This is an application that has been received to add a special provision to the subject lands to permit the construction of a vacation home partially within the hazard land zone and to request relief of 4.01% from the maximum permitted lot coverage. Edward and Teresa Rosal and agent Beaver Homes and Cottages have put forth the application affecting the lands described as 24A Ramona Crescent. And Alicia, is that you again? Thanks.
The presentation, oh, there it is. The subject lands are 0.19 hectares in size and are vacant, and they front onto Ramona Crescent in the former township of Woodhouse. The lands abut Lake Erie to the south and are surrounded by vacation homes in all other directions. The lands are designated and zoned agricultural and hazard land, and no public input was received for this application. This application is consistent with the provincial policy statement and conforms to the intent of the official plan. This application represents good planning. Staff support this application and recommend that it be approved.
Okay, thanks, Alicia. Any questions to staff? No? Okay, is the applicant or agent in attendance?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillors, John Oliver, Beaver Homes and Cottages, 116 King George Road, Brantford, Ontario. Here for any questions that you may have.
Any questions from councillors? Looking good. Thank you. Is there anyone else in attendance that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Anyone that wishes to speak in general or in opposition? Okay, if I could have a motion to close the public meeting. Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Ravitz. All those in favor? That's carried. Any further questions from the public hearing committee to staff? Somebody wish to move the staff recommendation? Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Ravitz. Application by Edward and Teresa Rosal, 21 Floribunda Crescent, Brampton, Ontario, affecting the lands described as lots 21, Plan 844, Geographic Township of Woodhouse, Norfolk County, to amend the Norfolk County zoning bylaw 1Z 2014, file number ZNPL 2019285, be approved for the reasons set out in the report number DCS 19-104, and that no public input has been received for this application and therefore was not considered as part of this decision. All those in favor? That's carried. This is going to be the fastest council meeting on record. Never. Okay, next is staff report DCS 19-111, and that's in regards to an application that's been received to rezone the subject lands from agricultural zone to development zone with a special provision to permit a parcel size of 8.094 hectares where 10 hectares is required. Robert Lawrence and agent James A. Bull have put forth the application affecting the lands described as 66 Tisdale Road. And Shannon, is that you? That was you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This zoning application is to fulfill a condition of consent to separate lands within the urban boundary area from the balance of land located in the agricultural area. The zoning amendment will facilitate a condition of consent and rezone the lands that are within the urban area from the agricultural A zone to the development D zone, which will essentially function as a bit of a holding zone till future development applications can be considered. There were a number of comments and letters received from some of the neighboring properties with concern about general development in the future. It is noted that any subsequent development applications, zoning applications that would be on the subject lands would be also part of the public process. So any neighbors within the 400 feet of the subject lands would receive notice of any future development proposals on the subject lands. As this is essentially a housekeeping amendment to consider lands within the urban boundary area, planning staff are recommending support of the application, and I am happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
No? Okay. Is the applicant or agent in attendance? Did you wish to speak to it? Okay. Does anybody else wish to speak in favor of the application? Does anyone wish to speak in general or in opposition?
My name is Joyce Wright, and I'm at 32 Clonmel Lane. And I have three concerns, one specific to the proposal, one concerning this proposal but in a wider implications, and one that's more philosophical. My husband and I are owners of a townhouse on Clonmel Lane that is adjacent to the property of concern. We're not original owners, but have owned the property since 2005. Mr. Lawrence over the years has been a thoughtful and generous neighbor to the extent of allowing extra footage for vegetable gardens on the edge of his field and with his farming practices. Our concern, perhaps down the line, is about drainage. These townhouses have very small backyards, and when we have heavy rainfall, water does collect. As long as Mr. Lawrence's field is adjacent, this is not a problem, but should this property be developed, we could see that this could become an issue, and we would like to be ensured that this will be taken into consideration should future plans come forth. The second concern we have is Tisdale Road. From the diagram provided, it appears that there is a street from the Egg Link development to the east, ready to connect to the Lawrence property. This would be providing an exit for the Egg Link development, and that is 181 residences onto Tisdale Road. Tisdale Road is a narrow, picturesque, tree-lined road. Deer frequently cross this road in order to access the Lynn River, and the Ivy Dam appears on many of our tourist brochures. To redevelop this road to handle the additional traffic, numerous assessments would be required: environmental, social, and fiscal. I can't help but speculate. Is consideration being given to develop the Lawrence property because Port Dover has a need for more residential property, or is there a need to provide a second exit from the Egg Link development? And is this a good solution, or is there potential for issues? down the line at a later point to be answered with Band-Aids? And are the taxpayers going to have to pick up the costs of any redeveloping happening along Tisdale Road to accommodate this extra traffic? We urge you to develop an upfront plan to handle potential traffic issues in this area. Our third concern is more philosophical. Norfolk County advertises itself as Ontario's garden, and yet seems to be readily amenable to replacing farmland with housing developments. And once we have lost this farmland, it cannot be brought back.
Thank you for coming forward. Any questions from councilors? Councilor Van Bassen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I read through your letters. There's two of them in our package. And I just want to assure you, most of your concerns in the first one, at some point, there'll be another public meeting when they actually want to do something with the land. And that's when we'll look at drainage and the access and the traffic studies and all those things. But there's a larger letter later on that's more on the philosophical level. And I saw a lot of really good, valid points and a lot of thought went into that. And as you're probably aware, over the next little while, we're going to be doing a review on the direction of all of Port Dover and which way we want to go. So I hope you will be available to add your expertise to that session of public meetings at that time, because you seem to be able to pick out little details and offer some good points of view on them all. So I hope you'll be around.
We would be most available.
Okay, thank you for coming. Anyone else that wishes to speak in general in opposition? Okay, if I could have a motion to close the public hearing. We'll close the public hearing and then you can. So moved by Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Van Passen. All those in favor? And that's carried. And if there's anything further from the public hearing committee.
Okay, page 41 of Dennis Wright's letter. It's page two of the report, I guess, or, well, it's an appended thing. It's on page 41 of the overall package. Right in the middle there, it says, since the current property owners to the east of the development are in a disagreement, access to Cockshut Road is not an option. What does that mean? And it came from Mr. Wright, but is there a disagreement at this time with the lands to the east?
Through the mayor to Councillor Columbus, I'm not aware of necessarily a disagreement or anything like that. I know that the property to the east of the Egg Inc. lands, the farm property there, they are interested in farming and maintaining that as a farm operation at this point, which at this point wouldn't have that connection across the lands. With the Egg Inc. subdivision, there are stubs kind of on the east and west sides of the subdivision to allow for future connectivity within the lands as they get developed. So there are stubs that are there till such time as the future or any landowners in the future wish to proceed with development opportunities on their lands.
Okay, thank you. My second question is, why is this 10 hectares so important to the planning process? We got 8 hectares here, but why is the number 10 so important?
Through the mayor, with respect to the zoning, with the development D zone, the minimum lot area is 25 hectares. So in order to recognize this as a standalone parcel, any lots that are created have to comply with the zoning bylaw. So that's what that site specific will do, is just recognize the lot area for the zoning on the property.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from councilors? Does somebody wish to move the staff recommendation? Councillor Columbus, approved, seconded by Councillor Van Passen. that the application by Robert Lawrence, 66 Tisdale Road, Port Dover, affecting the lands described as Part Lot A, Plan 186, Geographic Township of Woodhouse, Norfolk County, to amend the Norfolk County zoning bylaw 1Z 2014, file number ZNPL 2019249, be approved for the reasons set out in report number DCS 19-111. All those in favor? And that's carried. Okay, next is staff report DCS 19-112. That's in regards to an application that has been received to remove special provision 14.31 from the subject lands. The special provision allowed for 2 houses on the property. The rezoning is a condition of approval for the severance of a surplus farm dwelling. Luba and Jerry Rusin, an agent, Bow Park Farms, have put forth the application affecting the lands described as 31 Jenkins Road. And Ms. Van Dalen, I guess that's you again. Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. This subject zoning application is also an application, an amendment to fulfill a condition of consent. There were 2 severances that were approved at the August 21st, 2019 Committee of Adjustment hearing to sever the 2 existing dwellings off of 1 farm parcel. The purpose of this zoning amendment application is to remove the special provision that was on the subject lands that allowed the 2 houses, as no subsequent construction opportunities will exist for the retained farm parcel. There were no concerns raised by any of the public or agencies and departments, and as such, planning staff are recommending support of the application, and again, happy to answer any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Any questions from councilors? Councilor Rabbits.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, and more of a statement rather than a question, I see that we have a Michael Higgins who's prepared the report, senior planner. In parentheses, it says he's on contract here. And I want to just put forward the explanation as part of the strategic plan linkage. I got kind of a kick out of that. The report aligns with the 2019-2022 Council strategic priority of fostering vibrant, creative communities. Explanation: allowing the severance of surplus dwellings assists the farm industry by allowing the farmer to concentrate on farming, not being a landlord. And I thought that was eloquently put, and I just want to acknowledge that I appreciated that strategic plan linkage, and I think it is definitely in good faith with our strategic priorities moving forward as a council. And I just want to acknowledge Michael for his good work in this endeavor. Thank you.
Any further questions? I see no agent or applicant in attendance. I see no one else here, so I'm assuming nobody has anything to say on this matter. And I just learned something new. I just realized that now with also our changes in the public hearing committee rules, I no longer need a motion to close the public meeting each time. So even more expeditious moving forward. Does somebody wish to move the staff recommendation or propose an alternative? Councillor Martin, seconded by Councillor Taylor, that the application by Luba and Jerry Rusin, 35 Jenkins Road, Scotland, affecting the lands described as Part Lot 16, Concession 1, Geographic Township of Townsend, Norfolk County, to amend the Norfolk County zoning bylaw 1Z 2014, file number ZNPL 2019-254, be approved for the reasons set out in report number DCS 19-112, and that no public input has been received for this application and therefore will not be considered as part of this decision. All those in favor? And that's carried. So, a piece of bad news is that the drainage meeting was listed as starting at 5 p.m. for the one application. So 2 options for council, I suppose, to consider. We can amuse ourselves for the next hour and a half, or we can move to defer the drainage application until the next meeting. Councillor Columbus, how do you feel about things?
Madam Mayor, does the drainage, our drainage staff, do they expect persons to come forward to this meeting at 5 o'clock?
Through the mayor, I believe that this is a fairly standard application. It's very more of a housekeeping matter, so I do not believe that drainage staff feel anyone will come forward, but I can't say for sure. And I just sent a message to the interim general manager to advise that there is a possibility of deferral. So we do have about an hour and a half that they could notify, you know, if the engineer was to be coming, they could do that right away. But again, I can't say for sure, but I don't believe that this to be a contentious issue.
You have a cell number, right?
Being that the county's paying 80% of it, I think that's probably why.
Councilor Michelle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would hate for us to make a decision in the absence of people who might be planning on coming, and I'm just a bit surprised that...
I'm going to stop you. I think the decision is either we're going to wait until 5 o'clock or we're going to defer it until the next public hearing meeting.
I
and they'll
understand that,
just
but
be
I
sent to me.
thought we were discussing this based on whether or not we were going to have much public input.
Yeah, but let's not worry about that part because it's either going to happen at 5 or at the next meeting because we don't know if somebody's going to show up or not. So those are just the two.
Okay, but all right, I've been led to believe that this could be a contentious issue, and that's just perhaps information that I've
Right.
received.
So do you want to wait until 5 o'clock, which is the time that it's scheduled for?
That
Or
would-
did you want to defer it with new notice to be at the next public hearing meeting where they will also receive notice?
So we would put it off to the next public hearing meeting?
Correct.
I could be in favor of that.
Okay. Councillor Van Passen? If we keep going, we'll be here till 5 anyway.
If we want to get real technical, we can't defer it until the meeting starts at 5 o'clock because it's already scheduled for a 5 o'clock meeting. So, like, how do we defer it when the meeting hasn't started yet? The clerk will explain
I'll let the
this.
clerk take care of that one.
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Passen, I believe that the meeting itself, the mayor has already opened the public hearing meeting at 3 o'clock, so the public hearing has been open, and so you'd be fine to defer this item. It's just that that item specifically wasn't going to be heard until 5 because the statutory notice hadn't gone, it advised that it was a 5 o'clock start for that specific item, but I think it's fine to defer it. If there's a motion to defer and it's approved, then it's okay.
Could you guys just give me one?
So it's all open with, so our procedural bylaw has said that it's under the Planning Act, Municipal Act, and Drainage Act when she opened it. And there's initial signature.
I just wanted to make sure that Megan hadn't ordered anything, which she has not. There's just some light stuff. So, Councilor Ravis.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, at this juncture in time, I'd like to move for a deferral, and I would also like to have it at the top of the agenda for the next public hearings committee, so it's the first bit of business that we deal with, if that is in order.
Perfect. Seconder? Yes. I feel like she's got a direct line with the GM of Public Works.
If you want, I can double check before we go through with the deferral. Through the chair, or the mayor. I can call just to make sure, but again, I don't believe so. I think that this is just more of a housekeeping to then move forward.
So why don't we leave it as 5 o'clock? Why don't we just go and amuse ourselves for an hour and 20 minutes, and we'll be back at 5 o'clock for the drainage one. Settled then. Councilor Van Passen.
I do have one other question, just to make sure I got it straight in my own mind. Under our new procedural bylaw, all these planning applications that we have approved today, they are done, right? We can't pull them at a council meeting. The only thing we do at council meeting is review the minutes for errors and omissions. Is that, like, these are done now, we can't sneak them back in later, right?
Through the mayor to Councillor Van Passen, no, this is just a committee, so it's treated as our council in committee. So the minutes of this meeting, this hearing, needs to be approved at the council meeting. So if there's anything, so it's not finalized yet. Basically, it still has to be ratified next week.
So the 21-day appeal period for these applications doesn't start until the day after the council meeting, not after today's date, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. So we will recess
Well,
until
with
5
that,
o'clock.
I'll rescind my deferral. I want to make sure that was off the table then,
I
in light
gotcha.
of the new information.
Back on. Tension. So I think what we're going to do then is I mean, the staff recommendation obviously is for an approval and so on. So let's, but we don't have somebody to present the report. So we don't need, so everybody's read the report. Staff recommendation is to approve the report. If there is a member of the public that has a concern that we haven't heard today, then we will invite them to speak at 5 o'clock at the next council meeting. And if 5 o'clock doesn't work for them, and they could choose really any time, we could slot them into the agenda when they're here, so they don't have to wait for it, since they were expecting it to be right at 5 tonight. So, to whomever this affects, we will accommodate next week at a time of their choosing. So in that case, we've got staff report, which is 19-57. That's the Old Mill Road drain for consideration. We're now hearing an application under the Drainage Act. A reminder to the Public Hearing Committee, the process is a little different. The only aspects before us today are the design and engineer's report on the drain design. So to members of the public in attendance, we are not here today to discuss your assessed costs of the drain maintenance. If council approves the work, then you will receive notice and will have the ability to appeal the assessed costs at the Drainage Court of Revision. So we don't have staff to present, but everybody has a copy of the report in their package. Is there any discussion on the floor? Councillor Van Passen. Keep it simple.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wonder if it would be possible if I could ask a couple of our experienced councillors a bit more of the history of this, because I see it's been going on since 2014. And, you know, we're up to almost $100,000 to bury a 12-inch pipe for 180 meters or less. It seems pretty pricey on that, but it must be a rather complicated situation. And maybe there's a bit more background and some memories there.
Well, Councilor Van Passen, there's a good many drainage works that have been on the books on record for years longer than 2014 or whatever this one is. And it's not uncommon, but I was just reading one on page 64 of the package. The third paragraph down, the owners expressed concern at a site meeting that our firm was needlessly running up the engineering costs. And I'm thinking, like Councilor Michelli says, there might be some contentious issue here. We've had, in the previous council, we've had deputations, I believe, twice about this particular drain. It's been in need of repair for quite some time. So I think, you know, I think there will be people coming forward to speak to it. But, because they've been here before, looking for a solution to this bank erosion. It's an issue that's creating erosion of the end of the road where it meets where the lake meets the road, and that's one of the issues that they're trying to fix here.
Most of what I'm looking at, the old Mill Road, is basically where the drain would be.
But I can't see that that's going to be a real problem. Thank you.
Councilor Shelley?
I understand what Councillor Geisens is mentioning, but and again, this is just sort of a concern that I believe is part of what may bring some people forward on this issue, is that some people think that there is an inequitable distribution of the cost of this to some of the residents. And I think that part is part of it. And I just, I guess which also makes me think there could be this could be a little bit of a contentious issue. When I have visited that site, it is also evident that different residents have been trying to make their own drains that are coming out of that bank that is badly eroded, I have to admit. So I'm not clear as to whether or not those could also be some of the concerns that they might have. I am hoping, obviously, that this is a very simple, cut and dried project that looks pretty simple, but some simple projects don't always end up that way.
Okay, making an executive decision here. We're going to recess till 5 o'clock if everybody thinks this is a contentious issue and people are going to show up. Perfect.
Maybe we'll be lucky they'll come here a half hour earlier.
on the agenda, which is staff report GCS 19-112, and that's an application that has been received to remove a special provision. That's not right. That's number E, which is staff report PW 19-57, and that's the Old Mill Road drain for consideration. And I just quickly want to read my blurb on the Drainage Act. Okay, so we are now hearing an application under the Drainage Act. A reminder to the Public Hearing Committee, the process is a little different. The only aspects before us today are the design and engineer's report on drain design. So to any members of the public in attendance, we are not here today to discuss your assessed costs of the drain maintenance. If council approves the work, then you will receive notice and will have the ability to appeal assessed costs at the Drainage Court of Revision. And I guess if you guys could please present your report.
Thank you, Mayor Chop. Through the Mayor to Council, the report before you is to provisionally adopt a bylaw for the Old Mill Road drain in Clear Creek and allow the project to proceed through the Drainage Act process. Project was initiated by petitions signed by multiple landowners and the previous Director of Roads to deal with roadside drainage and the erosion that was occurring in the area. The design consists of approximately 180 meters of 300 millimeter HDPE pipe. 8 catch basins will be installed to collect surface water, and the water will be outletted over the revetment wall at the end of Old Mill Road. Normally at this time, the engineer would provide a brief presentation. However, if there are no major questions or concerns from council or landowners in attendance, I would suggest that we skip this formality. Andy Spreet is here in attendance if there are any questions, and we'd be happy to answer anything that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Any questions from the hearing committee? Okay, is there anyone in attendance that wishes to speak to the engineer's report? Well, we came back for 5 o'clock, so whatever you wanted to speak to. Something to do with? No? Okay. But your concerns are not to do with the allocation of the cost, which is different, I suspect, correct? We might as well. Come forward. It's not, that's in terms of the cost distribution. So this is in terms of the.
My address of where the property is or where I live? Two different. Okay. Hi, I'm Leah Treasy, 139 McCrae Drive in Caledonia. I have property in Old Mill Road, and I think, I know that I've been hit hardest with this financial obligation to this project, and it's a hardship. It's about close to $6,000. I understand the process of the drainage. I wasn't part of the petition. I don't know what else to say. I don't know. I was just trying to help out a neighbor. She had problems at the end. She kind of got us all together and kind of hoodwinked us into this project. That's what all I have to say. I can't afford it, and I know the benefits of it. I don't know what my benefits are going to be because I'm not farming it. It's not agriculture for me. I don't know how that assessment that you guys came up with is going to be profitable for me in the long run.
Okay, so, sorry, I think we're asking a little bit of a correction. So what you
Yeah.
say, if council does approve of what you will notice and then propose a subsequent appeal.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
We'll have a subsequent appeal period to be able to appeal.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's why I wasn't really going to talk.
Okay, no problem. Well, thanks for coming.
Okay.
So, does anyone wish to add or remove their name from the drainage petition? You would wish to add your name then, correct, to the drainage petitions. Have you added your name? Oh, you don't want to, it's just on a cost basis. Okay. Is there anything further from the Public Hearing Committee? Okay, does anyone wish to move the staff recommendation or propose an alternative? Move the staff recommendation. It's moved by Councilor Shelley, seconded by Councilor Ravitz. That staff report PW 19-57 Old Mill Road Drain Report for consideration by council be received as information, and that a provisional bylaw adopt the Old Mill Road Drain Report dated June 18th, 2019, prepared by John M. Sprite PNG and Andy M. Sprite PNG, and further that staff be directed to send a copy of the provisional bylaw and a notice of court revision to all required property owners, and further that the first sitting of the Court of Revision be scheduled in accordance with the provisions of the Drainage Act, and further that upon successful completion of the required appeal process, the Drainage Superintendent act on behalf of council to continue with the Drainage Act procedures for the construction of the proposed drainage works in accordance with the Norfolk County purchasing policy. All those, sorry.
Could I ask the our drainage employee here, will this eliminate the problem at the end of the road there that's been a concern? Is that what most of this is about? 'Cause I was surprised to see all the names attached to this drain petition.
Through the mayor to councillor, I wouldn't want to be put on record saying that this is going to completely eliminate the erosion that is at the end of Old Mill Road. There was a revetment wall that was installed, and that was done through an agreement with council. But when that report was when it came forward, there was numerous studies and recommendations about the erosion that was occurring at the end of Old Mill Road, and the majority of that erosion appeared to be coming from wave action and not necessarily the surface water that was coming down Old Mill Road.
Is this what precipitated the erosion at the lake? Is that what precipitated the need for this petition?
That was one of the original starting factors for the petition.
Okay, thank you.
Did you wish to ask the engineer any questions? Or?
No, I think I got my answer.
Councillor Rabbit.
Thank you, and through you to our staff. So we're looking at an image in our report. Looks like to the east there's a road, and is that where the erosion controls are in place? Because it looks like to the west that there's a bluff. And if we look at the report and the image that's contained within it, it's on page 61 of our agenda. It looks like there's a short road where there are erosion controls in place, and I was just hoping for a comment regarding the lie of the land.
Through the mayor, that is actually not a road that you're seeing to the east. It is a property, and the revetment wall was installed at the very end of Old Mill Road, which is at the southern end of the road. There has been other erosion control measures that have been installed along that eastern shoreline, but that has been done by a private landowner.
I see we have somebody that's just arrived. Did you wish to speak to this? Okay. Any further questions from the hearing committee? All those in favor? And that's carried unanimously. Finally, a motion that the public hearing committee meeting of October 7th, 2019 be adjourned at 5:10 p.m. Mover and a seconder. Councillor Rabbit, seconded by Councillor Geisens. All those in favor? That's carried. Council's adjourned. Thank you.